In a world where fast love, fleeting attention, and mixed signals have become the norm, something about an older man stands still, grounded, calm, and quietly magnetic. While many chase spark, drama, or surface charm, younger women are often drawn towards something deeper, something stable, something real. And it's not just about age, it's about presence. Older men bring more than just years to a relationship. They bring emotional intelligence, patience, and a sense of peace that's increasingly rare. They don't rush to impress or compete for validation. They've lived, they've learned it, and through those quiet lessons, they've developed habits that touch the heart in ways youth sometimes can't reach. They don't just hear, they listen. They don't just speak, they choose their words with care. And when they show up, they stay. To a younger woman, this kind of consistency is disarming. Not because she's weak or incomplete, but because she's often been expected to carry it all alone. To be tough, to protect herself, to settle for attention instead of connection. But when she meets someone who treats her emotions like they matter, who values softness without trying to change it, and who shows up with respect instead of control, something shifts. Her guard lowers, her heart opens, and love finds a place to grow. This isn't about fantasy or fairy tales. It's about the quiet, powerful ways older men create emotional safety. Whether it's remembering the little things she says, making plans and actually keeping them, or offering calm reassurance without demanding anything in return. These actions build a different kind of intimacy, one that doesn't have to shout to be heard. She begins to feel seen, not just admired, held, not just touched, respected, not just desired. And slowly, something rare begins to form. Trust without fear. Love without chaos. In this video, we'll explore 13 subtle, sincere things older men do that younger women secretly crave. Not because they are flashy or perfect, but because they bring something deeper. Presence, patience, and a love that feels safe to fall into. Because sometimes, it's not the loudest man in the room who wins her heart. It's the one who's calm enough to understand it, and kind enough to hold it. 1. They listen without interrupting. They listen without interrupting. And that alone can make someone feel deeply seen. In a world where most people are just waiting for their turn to speak, an older man who patiently listens stands out. He doesn't rush to correct, advise, or outshine. Instead, he leans in, holds eye contact, and truly absorbs what she's saying. That kind of attention isn't just rare. It's powerful. It tells her, you matter. Your voice matters. Younger women often deal with people who minimize their feelings or brush off their experiences. But older men who've lived through more understand that listening is not about waiting to respond. It's about being present. When she talks, he doesn't scroll his phone. He doesn't sigh or change the subject. He listens fully, letting her finish even the messy, emotional parts. And when she's done, he responds thoughtfully, not with judgment, but with care. That kind of listening builds emotional safety. She doesn't feel like she's competing for attention or defending her emotions. She feels understood, maybe for the first time in a long time. And in that quiet space of being heard, she finds connection. She opens up more. She trusts more. And trust is where love begins. 2. They offer calm, steady reassurance. They offer calm, steady reassurance, the kind that doesn't come from empty words, but from presence. Older men have often faced storms in life. They've seen hardship, made mistakes, and learned how to respond instead of react. So when a younger woman feels overwhelmed, anxious, or uncertain, his presence becomes her anchor. He doesn't panic when she cries. He doesn't dismiss her fears. He offers something much deeper, quiet strength. Instead of trying to fix everything right away, he simply stays with her in the moment. A gentle hand on her back, a calm voice that says, it's going to be okay. He means it, and she can feel that. He reassures not through dramatic promises, but through small, consistent actions. When he says he'll call, he does. When she's stressed, he listens instead of rushing her to get over it. That consistency builds emotional safety. She begins to believe in herself more. not because he solves her problems, but because he helps her feel capable. His calm doesn't silence her pain. It helps her navigate it. And over time, his steady reassurance becomes a quiet reminder. Love doesn't have to be loud or flashy to be deeply felt. Sometimes, all it takes is someone who stays, calmly, consistently, and without question. 3. They make her feel protected without control. They make her feel protected without control, and that's a rare balance. An older man often understands that real protection isn't about overpowering or restricting someone. It's about creating a space where she feels safe to be exactly who she is. He doesn't tell her what to wear, who to talk to, or where to go. Instead, he walks beside her, not in front of her, not behind her, offering strength without stealing her freedom. She knows that if something ever went wrong, he'd be there, not to take over, but to support. There's a quiet comfort in knowing someone has your back without trying to run your life. When she's with him, she doesn't feel smaller, she feels stronger. Because his version of protection isn't about control, it's about care. He opens the door, not because he thinks she's weak, but because he respects her. He checks if she got home safe, not to track her, but because he values her well-being. It's thoughtful, not possessive, and that makes all the difference. With him, she never has to fight to be heard, or shrink to feel accepted. He protects her peace, not her choices, and that's why she falls for him. 4. They speak with intention, not impulse. They speak with intention, not impulse, and that makes their words feel different. Older men have usually learned that speaking just to fill silence, or blurting out every thought, often leads to regret. Instead, they choose their words with care. When they say something, it holds weight. It's not for attention. It's not to impress. It's because they mean it. To a younger woman used to fast replies, casual texts, and emotional guessing games, this kind of communication feels refreshing. He doesn't rush to make promises he won't keep. He doesn't play hot and cold. He pauses, thinks, then speaks. Whether he's complimenting her, expressing how he feels, or setting a boundary, he does it with clarity and calm. And when there's conflict, he doesn't explode or lash out. He listens, then responds with maturity. That level of self-control builds trust. She knows he won't say something cruel just to win a moment. His words are rooted in experience, not ego. And in a world full of noise, a man who speaks with intention becomes a voice she can actually trust. 5. They remember the little things she says. They remember the little things she says, not because they're trying to impress her, but because they're genuinely paying attention. Older men often understand that connection lives in the details. When she mentions her favorite book, a tough week at work, or how her grandmother used to braid her hair, he doesn't forget. He stores it quietly and brings it back when it matters. It's not always grand gestures. Sometimes it's him asking, "How did that meeting go on Wednesday?" Or surprising her with that snack she once casually mentioned liking. And it's those small moments, those echoes of her words, that make her feel deeply valued. She realizes she's not just being heard. She's being held in someone's memory. To her, it means he cares about who she is, not just what she looks like. He's not waiting for his turn to talk. He's listening, truly, and showing her that every part of her story matters. That kind of attentiveness builds emotional intimacy. It tells her, you don't need to repeat yourself. I was listening the first time. And sometimes, that's all it takes to fall in love. 6. They prioritize quality over quantity. They prioritize quality over quantity, and that shifts everything. Older men often understand that more time doesn't always mean better time. They've lived enough to know that one meaningful conversation can matter more than a dozen surface-level ones. So when they're with her, they're really there. No distractions, no scrolling through their phone, no half-hearted nods. Just presence. Whether it's a short lunch or a weekend getaway, they focus on making it count. They ask thoughtful questions. They look her in the eyes. They engage with intention. To a younger woman used to rushed hangouts or distracted dates, this kind of attention feels rare and deeply affirming. He doesn't try to impress her with how often he texts or how many plans he can make in a week. Instead, He makes the moments they do share rich with connection, comfort, and care. That kind of depth leaves an imprint. It tells her she doesn't have to compete for attention or constantly seek validation. With him, less isn't lacking. It's just enough because it's real. And in that simplicity, love quietly blooms. 7. They value her emotions, not just her looks. They value her emotions, not just her looks. And that's where true connection begins. Older men often appreciate beauty, but they know that physical appearance is only a fraction of who someone is. So when she speaks from the heart, shares her fears, or reveals her insecurities, he doesn't brush it off or change the subject. He listens. He respects the depth behind her words. He sees her emotions not as weakness, but as a window into her soul. To a younger woman who may be used to shallow compliments or fleeting attention, this feels different. He doesn't just tell her she's beautiful. He tells her she's brave, insightful, kind. He notices how her face softens when she talks about something she loves, or how her voice shakes when she's hurting. And he holds space for all of it. With him, she doesn't feel like she has to perform or impress. She can cry, laugh, rant, or sit in silence, and still feel seen. That kind of emotional respect is rare. It makes her feel worthy, not just wanted. And that's the kind of love that lasts, one that sees the heart first and holds it gently. 8. They make plans and stick to them. They make plans and stick to them. That may sound simple, but in a world full of last-minute cancellations, vague promises, and unread messages, it feels like gold. Older men have often learned the value of reliability. If they say, "I'll call you at 7," they call. If they say, "Let's have dinner Friday," they've already picked the place. To a younger woman, that kind of follow-through isn't just refreshing, it's deeply reassuring. It tells her she's not an option. She's a priority. There's no need to second-guess if it's serious or wonder if he'll flake. He doesn't disappear for days or make her chase him. Instead, he shows up, consistently and without excuses. And that kind of consistency builds trust. Plans, to him, aren't just logistics. They are commitments. They show respect for her time, her feelings, and her life. And every time he follows through, she feels more secure, more valued, more at ease. Because when someone makes space for you and honors it, you stop doubting your place in their life. And that quiet certainty, that's where real love begins to grow. 9. They treat her with old-school respect. They treat her with old-school respect, the kind that isn't performative, but deeply rooted in values. Older men were often raised in a time when respect wasn't just a gesture, it was a way of life. So they open doors not to impress, but because it's second nature. They stand when she enters a room. They listen without checking their phone. They walk on the outside of the sidewalk, offer their jacket if it's cold, and say please and thank you with sincerity. To a younger woman used to casual flings and mixed signals, this feels different, grounding. It tells her she's not just another message or moment. She's someone to be cherished, not chased. Respected, not reduced. This respect shows in how he speaks to her, how he honors her boundaries, and how he never pressures or plays games. He doesn't flirt to feed his ego or compliment to manipulate. His respect is quiet but steady, and it tells her she matters. With him, she doesn't have to wonder where she stands. She feels dignity in every interaction. And in a world that often forgets how to slow down and care deeply, his old-school ways become her safe place. A place where love begins with honor and grows with grace. 10. They don't play games. They communicate clearly. They don't play games. They communicate clearly. And that alone sets them apart in a world where mixed signals have become the norm. Older men usually don't have the time or desire to engage in emotional guessing games. They've outgrown the phase of hot and cold behavior, mind games, and manipulative silence. Instead, they speak plainly, with kindness, honesty, and intention. If they like her, they say so. If something bothers them, they talk about it. If they can't make it to a plan, they inform her, respectfully, not at the last minute. This level of directness builds trust, because there's no confusion, no second-guessing, no emotional roller coaster. just steady, open dialogue. To a younger woman used to decoding texts and overanalyzing replies, this kind of clarity feels like a breath of fresh air. She doesn't have to wonder, what did he mean by that? Or wait hours for a response that may never come. Instead, she knows where she stands, and that creates emotional security. His clear communication isn't about being blunt or cold, it's about being real. And in that honesty, love feels safe, grounded, and genuine. Because when someone speaks with truth and care, it invites the same in return. And that's how love starts to feel like home. 11. They lead with maturity, not ego. They lead with maturity, not ego. And that changes everything. Older men often don't need to prove themselves through dominance, loud opinions, or attention-seeking. They've already lived through the phase of chasing validation. Now, they lead through quiet confidence, not control. They don't interrupt to feel superior. They don't compete with her. They don't need to win every argument. Instead, they guide with patience, listen before they speak, and choose peace over pride. This kind of leadership feels safe, not suffocating. It's rooted in stability, not insecurity. He knows who he is, and that self-assurance allows him to uplift rather than overshadow. He encourages her dreams instead of fearing them. He supports her decisions instead of needing to be right. And when tension arises, he diffuses it with calm instead of fueling it with ego. To a younger woman, this is magnetic. It's rare. It's respectful. His maturity gives her room to breathe, to grow, to speak freely. And in that space, love has a real chance to deepen. Because leadership without ego doesn't just create harmony, it builds lasting trust. 12. They make her feel safe being soft. They make her feel safe being soft, and that's something she may not even realize she's been craving. In a world where vulnerability is often seen as weakness, many younger women feel they have to be strong all the time. Guarded, tough. But with an older man who's emotionally grounded, that armor slowly comes off. Not because he demands it, but because his presence invites it. He doesn't mock her sensitivity or brush off her tears. He doesn't tell her to calm down or toughen up. Instead, he welcomes her emotions with patience and care. When she's quiet, he doesn't rush her. When she's emotional, he stays. And when she's unsure, he reassures, without making her feel small for needing comfort. That kind of acceptance is rare. It gives her permission to be her full self, not just the polished, put-together version. She feels safe to be gentle, expressive, and real. And in that softness, she doesn't feel judged, she feels held, loved, seen. Older men who offer that kind of emotional safety don't just win her trust, they aim a deeper connection. One built on authenticity, not performance. Because when a woman is safe to be soft, that's when love grows its strongest roots. 13. They teach without making her feel small. They teach without making her feel small. And that creates a bond built on respect, not superiority. Older men often carry wisdom from years of experience, but the way they share it makes all the difference. They don't lecture. They don't belittle. They don't use knowledge to assert dominance. Instead, they offer insights gently, as a gift, not a weapon. When she asks a question or admits she doesn't know something, he doesn't roll his eyes or talk down to her. He explains, supports, and encourages, with kindness in his tone and patience in his words. His goal isn't to feel smarter, it's to help her feel more confident. And that makes her lean in, not pull away. To a younger woman, this is empowering. It feels like being guided, not judged, like being uplifted, not corrected. He shows her things, how to fix something, how to handle a problem, how to see a situation differently. And he does it with care. And in those moments, love doesn't feel like a lesson. It feels like a partnership. One where growth happens side by side, with dignity intact.